Anytime there's a war, there's a lot of technology that's developed to help what's going on in the war. And so, anyway, we're going to talk about some of the things that were developed or improved for World War II, and we're going to have a Minnesota emphasis. We'll start with the picture here. I had asked you guys for number 7 to write down the name of the product, write down what the product is used for, and you're just guessing. And then lastly, why it was used more during World War II. Okay, so the photo shows you a picture of an M8 light armored car that's going through the Arc de Triomphe, which is in France. So we see some Allied soldiers, presumably US soldiers, going through an M8 light armored car. It looks like a tank, but it's a light armored car because it has wheels and not tracks. I think you can see that pretty well there. And it has seating for 4, not really totally comfortable. This M8 light armored car was made in Minnesota at the Ford Motor Company here down at the Ford plant on Ford Parkway in St. Paul. Ford switched over from making cars in 1942 to making light armored cars, and over 4,000 were made right here in the state of Minnesota. All right, our next product is Spam. I think you know that Spam is used as a food. And then why is it used more during the war? Well, I got to say that it was developed during the Great Depression in 1937 to stretch the Depression era budgets because Spam, it's known as spiced ham. Um, it was um, it was developed for that time period for homemakers to be able to, stretch the budget. But I will say that during the war, it was used a lot more because, well, let's take into account rationing. There are a lot of things that were hard to get a hold of. Meat was rationed, gasoline, let's see, sugar are some of the things that were rationed. So anyway, to get around that, we had this spiced ham, which is a meat product. A big thing about this is if you're the Rosie the Riveter type of person and you're going off to work and you're leaving the kids home, whoever's babysitting can whip up a can of Spam pretty easily. It keeps well. It's portable. You don't even have to cook it. You could throw it in with some other, fry some eggs or something and put it in there. And so anyway, this would be something that's used more during the war because it's portable. Now, on the battlefront, this is used even more because soldiers can carry it into war. It doesn't go bad if you're in hot temperatures like in the Pacific. It keeps if you're in cold temperatures too in the European theater. And so anyway, it was a really handy thing to have during the war. I hope you've tried some. Another product that's developed or improved and used more during World War II is macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and cheese is used for eating. Meat was rationed, and so this is a way that you could just add water to this, and so you don't have to worry about adding milk or meat to this. It's a meatless entree. You could get 2 boxes for 1 ration stamp. It was advertised as getting a meal for 4 in 4 minutes. And so for your Rosie the Riveter type, you could leave this to make for the kids as well, or you can make it yourself. It's a quick and easy meal. For the soldiers, of course, off at war, this is very portable and it's going to keep. So that would be really important. The next one is called powdered milk or dry milk. In this case, we have Carnation Instant non-fat dry milk. It is used for food or for cooking. It's developed actually in 1855, patented, and it's used in the Civil War, but it's more so used in World War II because it's easy to transport. It has a very long shelf life. You just have to add water. And then if you're the Rosie the Riveter type person as well back at home, milk is rationed or dairy products are rationed. So anyway, this type of dairy product, you can just, you're not going to have any waste. Not everyone has electricity, so they don't have refrigeration. You just mix up the amount of milk that you need. Is it delicious? Well, it's okay. I've tried it myself. It's got some calcium. With the next one. Margarine. This, I think you probably know that this product in the middle column is used for eating. It's made of refined plant oils, and so anyway, and cooking, of course. It's actually developed in 1863, and it's known as oleo. It was a cost saver during the Great Depression, and then of course during World War II, when milk was rationed, we have dairy products are rationed. We have this this kind of like butter substitute made out of refined plant oils, animal fats, rather than animal fats. And so anyway, it was something that was used more during the war, and it was helpful to get around that milk rationing. For the soldiers off at war, definitely it melts at a higher temperature than butter. So anyway, it's a little more portable. It has a good long shelf life as well. And you don't have to necessarily keep it refrigerated, though it kind of helps, I gotta say. The next one is called instant coffee. I think you know in the middle column what's it used for? Well, it's used for drinking. All right. Why is this product developed or used more during World War II? Well, let's just say that people wanted to stay awake, whether the Rosa the Riveter type of person here at home, working in the factories, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a teacher, you're doing extra hours and teaching extra preps, you're keeping awake. You're getting highly caffeinated and you don't have to whip up a whole pot of coffee, and there's less waste. Coming off the Great Depression, that was something that people really wanted to do, is worry about economizing. All right. I will say too that instant coffee was actually developed in New Zealand in 1890 for shepherds to make sure their sheep weren't having any predators. It was brought to the United States in 1938 during the Great Depression by a company called Nescafe, and it's known as soluble coffee, a coffee powder. And so anyway, it can be used for soldiers doing guard duty off at war. Definitely you don't have your basic, Caribou Coffee or Starbucks or Dunn Brothers to get to out off on the battlefront. And if push came to shove, you had coffee along with you. You don't even have to mix it with water. You can just chew on the granules to help keep you awake with the caffeine. I'm not saying it's pleasant, but it would be, keep you awake. Does it need to be hot? Well, it'll dissolve even in cold water. It's not that great at tasting, but it will help to keep you awake. Moving on to the next product, which is my favorite product of all the ones that were developed for World War II. It's called, well, it's called Eminence. What is this product used for? It's used for food, or it's candy. Why is this product developed or used more during World War II? It was actually patented in March of 1941. It was patented by Forrest Mars and Bruce Murray. Mars and Murray, that's where you get the M's. Forrest Mars was born in Minnesota. He worked with some Spanish American War veterans who'd gone off to the war and the Spanish American War. And when they took chocolate with them, it melted in the climates around Cuba and Puerto Rico. So anyway, they came, Spanish American veteran, war veteran, helped them to come up with a formula, Forrest Mars, to cover milk chocolate, well, and other chocolates later on, with a candy coating so that they're not going to melt it as low a temperature. So anyway, it was sold exclusively in the U.S. to the military. It only came in brown, and then later on it came in 5 colors after the war. Chocolate was rationed, sugar was rationed, so this is only for military purpose. It was used during the war as a high energy snack. So once again, my favorite product that's actually developed for World War II. Moving away from foods, we're moving on to a product. What is this product used for? Well, it is used for locating ships in fog by this guy named Hertz. And so anyway, what is it? It's radar. Radar. And in the late 19th century, of course, people wanted to not run aground with their ships, and lighthouses are helpful, but the technology could be improved. It works on the when short pulses of radio energy are sent to bounce off a target to reveal location. It was improved from 1934 to 1939 and was adopted by the U.S. Signal Corps in 1939. It was actually developed by the British, and it was used for military purposes, being able to note whether there were incoming aircraft, incoming ships. Eventually, sonar was developed for incoming submarines, and it was very helpful. It was adopted once again by the U.S. Signal Corps in 1939. It could also be used for weather fronts. So knowing when weather fronts are coming would be really good for battles. All right, so that would be important. Radar, developed and improved. I don't know if you can tell, but this is a television. It was used for transmitting and receiving images. Okay, why was this product developed or used more during World War II? It became available to the public in 1939, and it's used for communication. So that was really important. not until the 1950s did your common everyday household have it, but it was available to the public in 1939. So communication, very important. This was developed during World War II exclusively for the war. It's called a Jeep, or a general purpose vehicle. What is the product used for? It's used for travel. Why was the product developed or used more for World War II? Well, we're moving out from horses, even though horses were used in World War II. The military wanted a four-wheel drive vehicle that was light enough that if it tipped over, it could be placed, tipped back up. Chrysler and Minneapolis Moline, lots of vehicles, lots of companies came up with prototypes. Eventually, Chrysler and GM would get the patent for this for peacetime use. But anyway, Jeeps are used. They're called general purpose vehicles. They are can seat quite a few people. You can even put some people on the bumpers. There are shovels, etc., built in. Here, this one in the picture has a picture of General Omar Bradley sitting in it. He's talking to a military policeman. It says MP, and he's towing a trailer. So anyway, Jeep's multi-purpose, light. They even flew in gliders sometimes during World War II, like at D-Day. All right, this is a computer. And what is the product used for? It's used for information, obviously. Okay, so why is this used more or developed during the war? Well, there's a lot of things that, and I have a picture of an Orvac one that is from Wisconsin. It's used for a lot of things. I would have to say that it's an electronic digital programmable computer. And it was used for ballistics research, so you can tell how the effectiveness of your bombs and your missiles, your shells, your bullets. You may be familiar with a movie called The Imitation Game, where I talked about the Enigma code for breaking the code so that we'd be able to tell when the Allies would be able to tell where Germany was planning its next attacks. And so anyway, and that happened in 1944. I kept it under wraps, though, so that the Germans didn't know that we understood their code and we'd be able to move in on them. So anyway, a computer really improved for the war, and it keeps going from there. This was a product, and I realize that you've reached all the products on your list, but it's still kind of interesting just to hear about a few more. So anyway, this one is a refrigerated truck. And what is the product used for? It's an air cooling unit for trucks. It's developed in 1940 here in Minnesota by an African-American inventor. Actually, his name is Frederick McKinley Jones. And it kept perishable foods fresh and blood and medicines, from going bad in war zones. So that's why it's so very important. All right, the Minnesota connection. What is this? The name of the product? It's reflective tape. What is the product used for? It's for runways and airplanes, etc. And it's used more during the war. It's actually developed by Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing so that pilots can take off and land, and they could see what's going on. They could see where to land because of the reflective tapes on the runways. So very handy. The next one is the M8 light armored car. We were talking about this already. It's used for reconnaissance a lot and, spying, forward movement. And why was this product developed or used more for the war? Well, we needed better tanks, definitely for World War II. So that was helpful, and better mechanized travel. And in this case, we have the light armored car is quieter than a tank. Yes. All right, our next one, Honeywell, a company right here in Minnesota, developed Autopilot for the B-17 bombers and developed Autopilot for other planes as well, so that you didn't need as much of a crew on board. And if the pilot needed to get up and help someone who was needed help in back and loading something, or if a bombardier had gotten in trouble, they could go help them, and the plane didn't need to be necessarily controlled. It could be set on autopilot for a few moments. So anyway, that was really helpful. This is the British Royal Crown. King George V at the time said, "Keep calm and carry on." And this is a really well-known phrase for the era. Not a product, but I kind of see this product just available in popular culture once in a while. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. And so we see this guy not using gasoline for his lawnmower because, of course, gas is being rationed during the war. And so anyway, he's using push mower, which is a lot of work, but still available. And then we have his wife sewing a patch on his pants because he can't get new material. All the material is going off to the war effort. So use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Same with the next one. Milkweed pods were used for their silks, and I think this is just kind of a something that's kind of popular culture now because these milkweeds are